Hello everybody. I should have titled this video how to record wind noise, as you will see, but it's actually all about, well, one, quickly going over how to replace a water pump on a Mark III Mondeo 2 litre Duratec, but also the main thing I wanted to show today, which I've come across lots and lots of times now, is whenever you drain the water on these Duratec engines, you have to fill them up properly and you have to bleed the air out, because if you don't get the air out, you're going to end up having problems getting the water circulated properly and getting the air out. Well, you could literally overheat the engine without even knowing it. So watch on and I'll show you how to fill these cooling systems up, get the air out, so you can just run them up straight away and have zero problems. There she is, 2005 Mark III Mondeo 2 litre Duratec. Now I've just put the water pump on this car, brand new water pump, which is down there. I will show you how the pump comes out, but I'll do that on a spare engine I've got. Reason being, it's really difficult to sort of like try and show this on the car from where it is down there. But what I would normally do to get that water pump off, I would take this headlamp out, which is quite easy. That you take the front grill off as well. That's dead easy. They've only got clips that pull up. I would take the front wheel off, and there's a little splash guard underneath there held on by a couple of screws. I would jack it up, put it on an axle stand, and I would put the jack with a pad underneath the sump to support the sump. I'd then take this expansion bottle, and you've got like two 10mm bolts holding the expansion bottle in, one 10mm down there on a hose, a clamp holding that hose. Then you would move this bottle across here onto the top of the engine, out of the way. 3 15mm bolts and two 18mm nuts. That holds your engine mount on. You take the engine mount right off, and of course you've got the jack underneath your sump holding the engine up. Then basically from underneath the wheel arch, 15mm, you need a long bar. You turn the tensioner clockwise and you remove the belt. Make a note actually of how the belt goes back on if you don't know, because it's a bit of a routine, you know. It's quite a long belt. But anyway, once the belt's off, or you could actually leave the belt on while you try to undo them 10mm. But I normally put a little bar between two of the bolts and then use a long 10mm spanner to undo them water pump pulley bolts. But anyway, either way which you do it, you've got to get them 3 10mm off. The pulley will then come off. Then there are 3 8mm screws to actually, well, little 8mm headed bolts to remove the water pump. But I'll show you that on the car, on the spare engine I've got anyway. Anyhow, as I was saying about this pulley, because it's limited space down here, you can't get like an air gun in there, and if you take the belt off, this is just spinning freely. So to undo them little 10mm bolts, I just get a long spanner. You can use a ratchet and socket, no doubt, and put a bar between the other two bolts, and then you can just put it, snap it free. There, that's undone now. And then you can spin all the bolts out, and the pulley will clear the actual body that's here. There is enough room, but there again you can jack the engine up and down as well, because you've got the jack underneath the engine. There's not much more to get this off. 3 little 8mm bolts. There's 2 that are easily accessible, and there's a third one which is just underneath. You can see it when you're looking down from the top of the car. See, that would be the third one down on that little hole there I've just taken the bolt out of. So I'll get that last one out. These pumps can get stuck in there quite badly, so it takes a little bit of messing around to get them out. This one doesn't look too old, so it should come out quite easily. The problem is, because you're in limited space in the car, you can only get down to here. You could probably get a lever bar down to here, or you could get in through the headlight through here. So what I suggest is just get from the top like that and tap it a few times with a hammer, and then come from this side and tap it with a hammer, and you can sort of like work it backwards and forwards. This one's literally coming out straight away. But yeah, obviously because this is quite a newish pump, it's coming out easily, but believe me, they do get stuck in there. But also, once you're using a lever bar, you can, because you want to try and bring it out evenly, you can tap it from side to side like that, you can get a hammer in there and just whack it from side to side. Just spend a little bit of time trying to get it, wiggle it free, and eventually it will come free and come out like that. And there's not much left to do here really. Just get a bit of emery cloth or some wire wool. Just give that surface inside there a little bit of a clean up. Make sure all the surfaces where they bolt up are nice and clean. As for the new water pump, there's not a lot to really say about it. That's how it basically comes. Usually the oil seal, the O-ring, comes separate. You'll pop that on and slide that over onto the ridge. If I can get it on. Like so. And then you could use a little bit of silicone spray on that, just to make it go in easier. You don't want to sort of like nick that seal while you're trying to put it in and damage it. So that's it, that'll just pop in and then just bolt it back up. But anyway, apart from the water pump, I was just about to start filling it up with water, and I was just doing like an overall check around at the top of the engine, and I kind of see something which looks really sort of like dodgy. Just down there, there's the top radiator hose. It comes off, obviously, the radiator there, goes around to a housing on the end of the cylinder head. You can't see it at the minute, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the airbox out of the way, which involves getting that clip off. Come on. So that will come out the way. This hose will come off, and then you can remove the whole airbox. It's actually clipped on here as well with a little clip, so there's a cable on it. Whoop, it's jumped off. But yeah, that's your airbox out the way. Now I wonder if we can see this any better, because there's no way I'm going to let this car go out like this. That radiator hose, you can see there's a bit of antifreeze that's come out there, just crystallised up. But the whole hose is really bulged here, and it's not like soft. Sometimes the hoses can go really soft, but this one isn't. It's like rock solid, and I reckon you've got a load of like antifreeze and water that's kind of congealed or whatever, and furred up and sort of like expanded the hose. And I'll tell you what's going to happen when that Jubilee clip sits. It will eventually split the hose and it will start leaking. So I think before it gets any worse, I'm going to take this hose off and replace it and clean this housing up. I'm kind of guessing here that this is the original Jubilee clip, and it's like a 5.5 to 6 mil headed screw. If you don't use a flat headed screwdriver on it, I prefer to use like a socket, because you kind of get more leverage on it. But it's coming undone okay for a very old Jubilee clip. That's not bad. Anyway, also I'm going to have to remove this passenger headlight and the front grille just to get this hose clip off, because the hose clip is down below the back of the headlight, so I can't get to it. I pulled that grille out, which is like self-explanatory, so I'm not even going to bother. But yeah, the headlight, it's just two little clips. I just pull out like that. So I'll pop them out. Come on. Gotcha. Now, that headlight will pull forward. I'm actually going to take it right off, just to get it out of the way. Now I can go through where the headlight was and try and undo this Jubilee clip. So there we go. Surprise, surprise, this one's undoing as well. Usually they can get really seized up and you have to break them to try and get them off. Mission Jubilee clip successful. Now I've got to try and pull this hose off. I'm going to get it off the radiator end and then drop the hose down, because I don't want to get coolant all over the flipping top of the gearbox, which is going to be a pain. It's moved. Oh, it's actually coming off. There she blows. I'll let that. We got a bleeder. Right, sometimes these hoses can be a right flipping pain in the ass to get off. We shall see. It's coming actually. Let's move my light back a bit. It's actually moved. There she goes. We're off. Thank God for that. Now, if I can get this out. There you go. Look at that. It's come inside. Look at that flipping hose where it's all kind of ballooned here. That shouldn't be like that. That's because it's all furred up on that housing. Look at the crap inside there. Yeah, I've had this so many times in the past now. The actual where the Jubilee clip sits, these balloon up so much they split. It splits along there, that seam, and it will start to leak. And then you could end up having a bloody blown up engine if you don't notice it, or if you don't see your temperature gauge. In the case of these rentals, they're all Yanks that drive them, and they never manage to see a temperature gauge. So I'm going to stick a brand new hose on this and clean up that housing. So I think I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time just cleaning all this mess up. What I'll do, I'll scrape as much as I can with my screwdriver. And then I'll get some emery cloth and give it like a good rub to try and get it as clean as possible, because we don't want all this crap on it. That's no good at all. Well, I gave it a good clean up. I've used some emery cloth to get all as smooth as possible really, and this casing, it's a little bit corroded, but it's not gone through. I've had some of these casings in the past, especially on the smaller pipes at the back, where they've actually got holes in them where they get corroded that badly. But I think this one's going to live to tell another day. Anyway, over to the hose. There's our new radiator hose. And you can kind of see, look at the difference. How bulged that one is compared to the new one, which is just straight. So that one's going to go sooner or later. What I'll do is I'll use my silicone spray in the hose. That'll make it go on a bit easier. And I'll just pop this new hose back on. Then I'm going to show you how to fill these up with coolant so you don't get an airlock. We are fixed nicely onto our radiator. And over by our water housing, that should just slide straight on. Perfect. You notice these hoses, they've got a little like a white mark on them that levels up with a little tab, so you can't get them in the wrong position. So what I'll do, I'll put that Jubilee clip on, tighten that up. And there's no bulge in this one. Yeah, that's it. Lovely and tight. That top radiator hose is now good. I'm glad I've changed that actually, because like I've said earlier, I've had a number of these hoses where they split there, where they get ballooned, especially with all the corrosion that gets on that housing, and they split and they leak, and you know, you don't know who's driving the car. If it's a Yank, chances are they're not going to notice the temperature gauge and they're going to cook the engine, and there'll be mega money then to replace this. But anyway, what I want to show you now is the coolant expansion bottle. I've now got to refill it with coolant, and I can tell you now, if I put coolant in that bottle, it'll come up to the maximum mark, and then you can run the engine up, and what will probably happen is the engine will get hotter and hotter. If you leave the cap off, chances are the water will start overflowing out of the bottle here. If you put the cap on and screw it up, there's a high chance the engine's going to start to overheat, and you're going to find yourself in all kinds of problems. The reason for that is these engines get an airlock in them down by where the heater hoses are. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to bleed the air out of this engine, so you can just put the water straight in, run it up, and have no issues whatsoever. Okay, in we go. I'm going to fill this coolant up till it's just a little bit above the maximum mark. Now I've filled the coolant bottle up sort of like fair way above the maximum mark. Now over here where we have just fitted our top radiator hose, if you follow the housing across, there's another hose. It's a bit hard to see, but it's a heater hose and it goes onto the same housing. I've undone the clip, okay, removed the clip, and I'm going to pull the hose off, and what will basically happen is the air's all going to come out of that hose when I pull it off, and the water level in the expansion bottle will drop. So as soon as I pull this hose off, I'm going to go over to the expansion bottle and you can see the water drop down. So as the water drops down in the expansion bottle, it will start to pour out of this hose. So that's at the point we'll put the hose back on. So I can't actually, yeah, it's a bit difficult to show you where it is because it's buried with bloody wires and stuff, but there it is, just there. So I'm going to pull this hose off like so, and then over here when you look at your expansion bottle, see that? See it go down? And now the water's starting to pour out of here. So now I can put that hose back on. And I'll refit this hose now. And then I'll retop up our expansion bottle. And I'll take that just a little bit above the maximum again. And that is it. That is all the air that's been taken out of our system now. If I didn't remove that heater hose and get the air out, we could literally overheat this engine trying to run it through. So you would have thought with all these like bleed off pipes that it would have self-bled, but these engines don't self-bleed. Every single time I have to change a water pump or something like that, I have to remove this hose hit down the back here on that housing in order to get the air out. And now when I run the engine up, I'll have no airlocks, the heater will start getting warm straight away, and everything will be fine. All back together. Oh, it's getting flipping windy outside. Right, now I know that the air is out of the system, I'm not going to have no overheating issues. But here's another thing. This is in case you don't know. Most mechanics will know this. Well, you would think so. But believe me, I have had mechanics come along and change like a radiator. They've drained the cooling system, they've refilled, they've refilled the cooling system, put the bloody cap back on the expansion bottle and shut the bonnet, thinking that's it. And I've stood there in absolute disbelief. But anyway, I'm going to start the engine up. Now our temperature gauge at the minute is cold. Here's what we need to do whenever you change coolant. Whenever you've changed a water pump or a radiator or something, you go to your heater controls and you turn the heating up to as maximum, as high as it will go. Okay, so that's on high. We'll put our heater fan on probably number 2 speed, and we'll have the air coming out of our central vents. That means the air's going to come straight out of these vents, so I can feel it quickly with my hand, or I'll put my face up to it. The reason for this is, when you start your engine, the heater is what warms up first. The hot air is going to come through the heater quite quickly. So the hot air from the engine will come through the heater matrix and then be blown through here quite quickly. That way we can tell if the heater vents are warm early on. We know that there's no airlocks in the heater. If there was an airlock in the heater pipes, there would be cold air coming through here. Then we'd know we've got a problem. So what it is now is a combination of keep checking these vents are warming up and also keep an eye on your temperature gauge. But I can tell you now, because I've bled the air out through that heater hose on that engine, that these are going to warm up quite quickly and I'm going to have no problems with airlocks. I can even put my hands on the heater pipes and and I can actually feel that both heater pipes are quite warm. The water going into the heater radiator will always be a bit hot than the one coming out, but I can definitely feel that both the pipes are nice and warm. The car's only been running for like 3 or 4 minutes at the moment, and I can feel the heat. I can definitely feel the heat coming out of that vent, and our temperature gauge is not even reading at the minute. I don't think these gauges even start reading until they reach 60 degrees. But what we're going to do now, I know I'm not going to get no airlocks and no problems with it running up because of what I've done. So I'm going to run this up now until the heater's properly warm. I'm going to wait till the thermostat on the engine opens and the cooling fan cuts in. Once the cooling fan is cut in and then cut out again, then that's it. We know that it's all done. We can then switch it off, let the car sit for a few hours, and then top the water up, and then we're done. Oh, there we go. I've just heard the fan cut in. Hey. That means the thermostat's open, the water's gone through the radiator now, and the engine's got to the temperature where it's kicked the fan in. So that's it. That's all we have to do. Apart from now, check the level in the bottle, which is still a little bit above the maximum. And when I switch the engine off, what will probably happen is, when the water cools down, it will drop a little bit, and it might drop a little bit below the maximum, so I might have to top it up later when it's cold. Yeah, the fan's just cut back out again now, but this heater vent is like, oh, that's cushy. That is lovely. That's actually toasty, lovely and warm. And our temperature gauge is good halfway, so no problems there at all. So that's it, we're all done. So now, if you ever have to replace your water pump or any coolant hoses or anything on your Mark III Mondeo 2 litre Duratec, you'll know now how to bleed the cooling system so you don't get no overheating issues. That's it guys, so till the next time, see ya.